Hallo, guten Nacht, guten Tag, whatever you're doing, wherever you are. Um, just waiting for people to get in here. I know I'm late. Yeah, shout out to being late, right? Like all the rest of the cool kids, right? Yeah. No, man, I had to have a serious conversation. Somebody was gonna have a nervous breakdown, you know what I mean? And so I had to have a serious conversation, so it ran a little long. But alles gut now. So how y'all doing? How y'all doing, man? You can hit me with the questions and stuff. With whatever you want to shoot my way now. You know what I mean? Just fire away at will, and I'll be going in the regular, the personal, the societal, the metaphysical, all of that, right? Holistic stuff, bruh. So a lot of the stuff I just want to drive home. Some of the stuff some of the people watching this might have already heard these things in different ways, but I want to drive home some of these points just to make it more clear. So, like, if you look at if you look at God or whatever, or the Creator, the originator of creation or whatever, as a father or a father or parent, whatever whatever makes you feel at home. I feel like, all right, so the creator is the light, right? Or you could say the creator is the self or whatever. But as far as making this analogy or metaphor more clear, I just want people so that people can see that there's no separation here. It's like people saying we're made in the image of the creator or the Lord or what have you. I just I wanted to say, like, it's really no different, on a microcosmic level. The micro is the macro, and if you have a child, and you're not, and you are truly yourself, then it's really the similar. That's a reflection of the relationship that the creator has with every individual person, because the creator or the originator of consciousness is pretty much the father of all the other fragments or extensions of consciousness. So um, when the creator is trying to communicate, or it wants it is as far as the will of the creator is to create, and creation is alignment. So when the children are in alignment with the source, then creation unfolds, because creation is alignment. So um, it's a byproduct or whatever. And if you look at it like, if you wanted to tell your son something, or your daughter, what have you, you wanted to tell them, you wanted to give them a message, right? And, like, for the sake of this argument, they say they have an alter ego, or they have a personality disorder, right? Where when it's truly them, but then that they got that alter ego that comes and takes over, whenever they get mad, maybe, or when they get sad, when they get pressured or something, whatever the circumstances is, they might get triggered in different ways, and like that personality takes over the body, right? So you want to deliver a message to your child without this personality, or this, I would like to call it a parasite, or anti-consciousness, anti-presence. This spirit, really, this program that takes over upon a triggering. If you get triggered because of some old trauma, whatever, you get reminded of it, or different circumstances remind you of times where you have to just go into a certain program. Somebody might yell at you, and then you go into a certain program. You might get reactive and aggressive, or you might get submissive. You might run away altogether. And that's like a program. That's like a spirit getting control of the body, taking over, and that program runs its course. It's just like any program that an app that you make it do something. So you got an app that makes playlists on your phone, or an app that makes slideshows or something. You put the slideshows together, then you press create, and then it does its job. The program runs, completes its course, and then you've used it for whatever scenario to make your slideshow or whatever. And it's the same thing. Programs or spirits is the same thing. So you got a grand scale of that. You have humanity, or you have original man or whatever, right? You have souls, right? That's original man, and woman to original woman is man. Same thing. It's all man, and just like elephants is, whether it's the female or the male, it's elephant. It's all elephants. So like, you have all these souls that's like original souls, and then you have like programs that are within them, right? And then so if they were to breed in a certain way where they fragmented, if they didn't keep biodiversity and they inbred or whatever, over time you have a fragmentation process where instead of those programs being in like a single body and have running like certain faculties for that single body, now they've been like externalized through the fragmentation process to where now the program has a physical body. That spirit that was running its course, running its program, running itself within you, or being like a servant to this being, it was just an angel or a spirit, whatever, within the being. It's a program within them. Some people, you click on, they have different personalities or different things that take over through their conditioning. They have different, somebody could be under no stress at all, and they're like, themselves, and then as soon as the stress kicks on, they kick into a totally different program that they've trained themselves to go into. And that's just a spirit that's a servant to them. But if you were to breed in an unconscious way through vanity and just breeding for the wrong reasons, then over time, those spirits get their own bodies. So now, instead of the body being a soul with a cadre of spirits that are that are on the same team as it, now it's like this rogue, deranged, or out of range spirit that's kind of like out of the tether. It's a free radical at this point. So like, you gotta look at humanity, or the experience, the human experience, whatever you want to call it, this thing is like a body, and you got souls that are like cells, right? And then you got spirit programs that assist in the processing of the body, whether you want to call it enzymes, whatever it is, or whatever these byproducts are from the cells interacting within the body. The body's made up of a bunch of different layers of cells or atoms or whatever, and that's basically the interaction between different areas of the body, different layers of tissue, because again, every organ is just a different formation of tissue. So when you have different communication between or within an organ, then you have different byproducts, different enzymes, different hormones, different endorphins and hormones, same thing really. And so then you have these are the programs within the body. If you eat something that requires amylase to break it down, now the body's responding, reacting, communicating within itself to produce that amylase. It's running the amylase program. So like, once that all gets fragmented, and now you have all these programs that are just free radicals and not really aware of the tether that they have. They're not really aware. Everything becomes cancerous. The scene becomes cancerous because you have people say like good gut bacteria, bad gut bacteria, and that the brain is synonymous with the gut, and that the gut is like the lower brain or whatever. Really no separation. So you have a bunch of programs that could be beneficial to the processes within the body. They could be good bacteria, or they can become rogue. They can become free radicals, and they oxidize and destroy the system. And so when you have a bunch of a cancerous system, and you have a bunch of cells being malformed, because that's really what cancer is cells not being formed properly. So now they're more cancerous. The template is breaking down. Some part of the system is breaking down to where now, when the cells regenerate or reproduce, when more cells are produced, they're coming out. They're not formed fully like they should be. And it's the same thing with people. People are being born, and the programs, all their faculties aren't there in order within that being, and they can defrag and become more whole, and generate their a proper relationship or correct relationship with those programs, to where they implement them accordingly and appropriately, and then they're in union with the Creator, and the Creator can communicate directly without having to encode things in an encrypted language, and through encrypted or metaphorical communication. It can be a lot more direct if the soul or the cell is more direct with themselves. They're more themselves, so there's no separation. When the body communicates with itself, it's the same thing as the self or the consciousness. There's no separation. It's the communication with the self. It's the communication with the Creator. So when that relationship is there and there's no lag or disruption or blockage, then you have trust there. So the Creator can give you different gifts, more communication. So then you can be more yourself and express the Creator even more. You're not going to take that light that you get from the communication with the Creator and honeypot it and use it to manipulate others and prevent people from learning. You're going to learn it to the fullest and teach it to the fullest, and then it spreads, and now everybody's enhanced, and then you're not even worrying about being the only one that knows that. You're trying to, you're not even trying. You're learning the next thing. You're realizing the next thing. You're getting more communication with the Creator, to where you can share more. And it's the more he gives to each other, and the more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. You know what I mean? That's the nature of the Tao. So that's the nature of the Creator. But if the body is not inhabited by its true self, or the true self is not really, the true self is always there. It's just buried for a lot of people, So it's not really being fully expressed. So there's no trust there. The Creator is not like, I'm going to give you these keys to this vehicle. I'm not going to give you this light, this information, this knowledge, which is light. I'm not going to give you this because you're going to abuse yourself, and you're going to abuse others with this. So only way I can give it to you is in an encrypted way. It's just like this, like I said, the father trying to give something to his son with the personality disorder. He's like, I got to communicate this to the person, to the true self, something that the true self knows and is aware of. I got to communicate this to this true self part of my son. Because if I communicate it in a way that the personality can decode it or, understand it or whatever, then it's going to, it's going to get used against my son. It's going to get used against all of us. So I have to somehow tailor this message, this light, this knowledge, to where only the self can understand what I'm getting across here, what I'm sending, the message I'm sending. And I have to communicate directly with the self. The only way I can do that is just be completely myself, and to communicate in a way that only the self is aware of. Because as soon as the parasite personality, because again, personality is really anti-consciousness. You know what I mean? So like, as soon as the personality gets a hold of the information or the light, it's going to use it to satisfy its fault, its needs, which are illusions. You know what I mean? The personality becomes so self-realized that it literally tries to protect itself and keep the body away from information that would allow it to align with its true self and transcend that personality and let it go and use it, control it, put it in its place, instead of the personality controlling the body, which should be again the temple or the vessel of light for for the light, for the creator, which is the light, it's the consciousness. So, people, we will be able to get this shit directly if we, because again, it's like I was saying in the post recently, like a boat goes across the water and it leaves a wake. People that wakeboard, they ride the waves that come off the boat, right? The wake is the effect of the boat going across the water, right? And that's the same thing like your dreams. Like dreams are really reality, right? That's really what a real dream is. It's really reality. It's experiencing creation, which is experiencing the creator, which is experiencing heaven, which is experiencing eternity, right? So like the wake from reality is a dream, which is what we call life. This is a dream. This is an extension of reality. This is not eternity. This is infinity. It's different. People that haven't discerned the difference between infinity and eternity. It's an infinite loop. If they say like life spirals, if you look at it like some beings are just in an infinite loop and there to pretty much just to capture as much energy as they can, to stay in that loop, to perpetuate themselves within that loop. That's what a parasite does. Whereas like eternal beings are going through their cycles, they're going through their eternal loop, or eternal, like a DNA strand, eternal ladder, Jacob's ladder or whatever, eternal spiral, what have you, the inward path to within themselves, which is the creator, you know what I mean? Walking in the likeness of the Lord, eternal life, going inward forever for eternity. So if we had as a collective had a better understanding and a more clear experience of that, of what this place is, and we communicate with ourselves more clearly, then we could obviously communicate more clearly, and we would use this time differently. We wouldn't use this time for vanity, and we would have more direct communication. It would be like, okay, I wake up, because this is the wake. We're in the wake. We're in the wake of consciousness. This is the subconscious. That's what we're experiencing here, and everything's been inverted by those that would benefit from that inversion. And if the direct communication was direct, then you wouldn't need to dream, or what we call a dream, in order to get the messages. The messages are constant. Whether they're via thoughts, whether they're via emotions, whether they're via whatever's going on around you. Because again, like this is the dream. This is the extension. So if you look at like anything that you see in your life and apply that to, like, you go to a website like Dream Moods, where you can get like a basic understanding, a vanilla understanding of what different things in dreams mean. Like, you saw a butterfly in a dream, or you saw this in a dream, whatever. If you start to look at the thing, like your daily life, as if it's a dream, and start to see what different things mean, then you can kind of start to translate the signs. Like, I'm getting constant signs in this. This is actually the dream, and everything has kind of already happened. And at this point, I'm just being given the opportunity as a shadow of myself, to align with the light, so that I can be one with the light. And so the self is like, I don't want to lose no parts of me. It's like if somebody say like, which finger you want to cut off? Like, you don't want to cut off no part. Like, you don't want to cut off like, I got a toe injury right now, and I feel like this might be the worst injury I've had in my life, yo. I broke my leg, and I was back in like 10 days, yo. I fucking hyperextended my toe because we was playing on fake grass. And it's probably one of the worst injuries. This might be the worst injury I've ever had, yo. And I had got something similar to this before, but it's so my whole body feels good, but then just from having my toe being hyperextended, I can feel it every time I put my foot down, and I'm just like, man, you never really know the value of something until it's gone, or it's not functioning properly. And so you don't want to lose nothing. You don't want to lose your pinky toe. Everything is necessary. So that's how the Creator is looking at all beings that have been created, even in an extension of its will. You know, the Creator created, or the original man, and then by extension of the Creator doing so, he gave original man the will to replicate itself in vain ways and all that. The opportunity was there. So now you have residual creations that aren't really the original template, but are an extension of the original template. So they're extension of the will of the Creator. That's why, they can even exist. It's still about the will of the Creator ultimately. So they're all tools. Even the most distant graph can be used as a tool by the Creator. It's just like, again, the tool itself has to foster that relationship, has to be its own parent to connect with the ultimate parent of life, So as it's raising itself or becoming more integral, having more integrity, then that relationship can continue to expand, and then that being, that graph, can be used as a vessel, no matter how fragmented or piece of a fragment they are. But I'm just saying this, like, so that people can, see that the communication is constant. It really is constant. And this is a constant opportunity, like, to kind of pick up the pieces to stay aligned. So, like, the Creator doesn't want to lose nothing. The Creator don't want to lose a fingernail. You cut off the parts that's dead or whatever. You got dead ends in your hair, you cut that off. Whatever. Anything that's dead has to go to the compost pile, and then it supports life that way. So, anything is like similar to like a pinky or tip of your finger or whatever. You don't want to lose nothing. So the Creator's looking at it like that. Like, if there's some shadow out there that can become, realize itself and become one with me, with the Creator, with creation, with the originator, then I don't want to wait. I'm going to give it as much opportunity as I can without, I don't want to say without harming others, but I'm going to give this creature, this creation, as much opportunity as I can to align with me, and I'll use it one way or another, even if it chooses to be vain and destructive. I will use it to its fullest potential to teach, or to use it as an expression to, to exemplify something in life. And because there's nothing going to waste. Everybody's fertilizer, like I was saying. Like a tree drops a bunch of fruit, only so many of those apples or whatever become a whole tree. Most of those apples just turn into fertilizer. And so it's still very valuable. If somebody's a rapist or a murderer or whatever, it's still valuable in the system because it's all there to teach, and this loop, this infinite loop of possibilities or whatever, of physical possibilities playing out, is an opportunity for people to realize what is real and what isn't before they perish and they have, eternal damnation or hell or whatever, and infinite, really, damnation of just looping the same shit until they get it. And that's just infinite desire. It's the burning desire of hell. Constantly dying and not fulfilling, your true purpose and full expression of yourself, to where no matter what you've accrued and achieved on a vain, earthly level, you're still going to die with desire to have completed your life correctly. So then you just loop right back, and then you loop right back, and you go through the same challenges until you figure it out, and some people are in this infinite loop, who knows how many times they've been here. And, it's really like God is creating, and that's where creation is coming from heaven, right? And so then if you fall asleep from that state, say if God falls asleep, God wakes up, God is in the wake. So God wakes up here, right? So then, as long as God doesn't know itself, like if it's an elbow of God or a pinky of God or a big toe of God or whatever, just for the example, doesn't know itself and is separated from itself and is estranged from itself, is not what is what is kinfolk and others that are working towards growth. If it's not within the body and it's surrounded by cancerous cells and everything, then that benefits the parasites, the programs, the spirits that only exist in this loop. They don't want God to wake up, because as soon as God wakes up, then they cease to exist. They only exist in the dream. So they need God to stay asleep. They don't want God to wake up to heaven. They don't want God's pinky toe to go to realize that it's part of a foot, and the foot to realize it's part of a leg, and to realize it's part of a whole body, and to realize that for that body to wake up. And, that would be original man waking up and God expressing itself through original man. So the parasites in this stage of separation, whatever, what have you, this infinite loop that is, this stage of separation where things appear separated, the parasites try to keep as much division as possible and try to keep as much of God asleep and numb to where the body never fully wakes up, fully expresses itself, goes through the detox, lives out the dream, fully completes the dream, and then the consciousness return, the light realizes its source, itself. So then, it's like the Tao Te Ching says, like, use your own light to return to the source of light. If you realize your own light, then you realize where light comes from, and that's where that's who you are. You are that light, and that's where you come from, the light. So I'm just saying this more so like, like it's real to explain it on a more physical, rudimentary level. It's just like a father giving his son with a personality disorder a message that only the true him will understand. Whether it's like some type of object that only the true self remembers, and the parasite maybe came on later, the program maybe came on later in time, to where only the true self will remember, like, oh, this is the baseball I hit the home run with when I was 6 years old, when I was really truly myself, and my dad was there, and it was, and this triggered something else, some other memory, and then I remember myself more. And I remember myself, I go back further before 6 to 5 to 4, 3, 2, 1, infancy to pregnancy to before pregnancy to heaven to eternity. So like it's constant jewels, it's constant light being dropped or given, pushed, it's like a push message to, from the creator to its various pieces of its physical self and extensions, and you're not going to be able to answer the phone or the call. You're not going to be able to read the message. You're not going to be able to decode any of the message if you're not being yourself. And, and then people that are in a battle with themselves, they're going to decode some of it. They're going to decode just enough to take advantage of others and take advantage of themselves. It's like God giving you a gift, yourself giving you a gift, and you're like, all right, I'm going to use this to abuse others instead of growing myself and getting more gifts and sharing more. I'd rather just take this gift and abuse. And, it's pretty much just where we're at. And, it really, like I said in the last live, you just got to master language. You got to master one thing fully, because that is a language itself, whatever it is. If you master anything fully, completely, totally, you're completely literate in it, and now it becomes a language itself. And I feel like we're in a place where most people haven't really fully mastered their own languages, so they're not fully literate with the way with themselves. They don't really know how to communicate with themselves completely. So messages are missed because they're coming across. They appear cryptic. They're really pure. They're really simple, but it's gonna appear cryptic because you're not direct with yourself. If you're direct with yourself and you have a direct language that's not so much of a derivative slang language that's merged with other languages that were derivative slang languages, then if you're more direct, then It's just a clear message, like, oh, I'm literate and direct. So this is just pure. This is like water or anything that's one ingredient is pure. It's primal. It's one. So that's the way that the one that is one with all communicates in a very pure way. But it's gonna seem so encrypted and so metaphysical and metaphorical to you if you've been fragmented and you don't communicate with yourself directly. Now you can't even communicate with yourself in your wake state. So now you got to do it through the dream state and try to bring it back into the wake state through little flashes and little fragments of remembering the dreams and not really having control of the recall. Trying to bring it over that bridge, that rainbow bridge, back into this body. And then your parasites are working against that, your personality, that's working against that. Most of the times when people say I, it's the personality. It's not really the true self when they say like I'm this, I'm that, I'm sad, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm white, I'm black. All that is personality. That's the parasite. Most of the time when people say I, that's the parasite talking. It's not the true self. So now pure simple messages, because simple is pure, pure is simple, cannot be understood because you have something else trying to decode something that's not pure, trying to decode them, and they're not in the likeness. So all the parasite can do is get you to decode it for it, and then try to tempt you into using it for personal gain instead of universal growth. And so the message is always getting received. The self is always understanding it, and the self is just imprisoned in the body. If the body's not really fully communicating, it's filled with toxins and that's just parasite food. Toxic emotion, it's parasite food. Fear is the main parasite food. That's like giving off fear is like blood in the water to a shark. So when people call pride and hate and anger, anxiety, all of that is fear lodged in different areas of the body. So you got parasites in them areas that are eating it metaphysically, and then it becomes physical once it gets out of hand. You got physical parasites. Metaphysical becoming dense, and the fear turns into pizzas and cookies and cakes. It's not even no longer just a thought. It's now taking on physical form to where it's just, you have something that's not you, not the true you, using the body to feed physical parasites that stay in position as kind of like police dogs that police the cells, bully them to where you just stay in these cycles, these loops, this parasite loop to never process that emotion so you can keep hemorrhaging it while you're dreaming. You drink coffee every day, you eat shit you shouldn't be eating, you're going to go into your dream stage because you got all this unexpressed, all this repressed emotion. You're going to use your dreaming time, your REM time, to express it. If you're really angry and then you go to sleep, if you haven't addressed the anger, you haven't done breath work to get it to process it, you haven't stretched to push on the tissue to snap that shit out of your organs, because once you stretch, the organs snap, all the tissue snaps like a rubber band and releases garbage. And if you haven't been doing that, and then you're just going to sleep while you have all this anger and fear, basically, in your liver or wherever. Now you're going to sleep and you're just yelling in your dreams. You're having rage-filled dreams. That's how you synchronize with parasites. Parasites oh, well, this gives me an avenue to exist. Now I can disrupt. It's like in the Matrix when Agent Smith takes over the one guy, right? The one guy that's on the mothership, right? He's in reality, right? Agent Smith takes over his body in the Matrix. And then he wakes up in reality and he's Agent Smith and he's trying to kill Neo. It's the same thing. Now you've gotten to a point where it's different levels of heaven, different levels of reality. More, this isn't not real. It's just a less real reality level of heaven. So like, you got different levels of clearance because God is the government. God is the ultimate government, and the fake government this externalized government that we have is a reflection and a copycat, because parasites can only copy and mimic and invert. It's a reflection of the original government, right? The ultimate government that's always in control. So like the government that's here today, externally to us, they have different levels of security clearance. And if you have certain levels of information and certain levels of knowledge or whatever about information in the government, then you have a different level of clearance. And if you lose your clearance, then you lose access to certain people. You lose access to certain meetings. You can't even be in certain buildings because you don't have clearance. So it's the same thing in heaven. It's different levels of reality. So if somebody gets, if they fall asleep from heaven, they wake up in this waking place, and they get infected by a parasite, which stem from some vain spirit, that they identify with and let them run their body. Now, when they go into the dream state, they're carrying the parasite into a deeper reality. So now the parasite has more access, and it's just trying to leap and get deeper and deeper and closer and closer and closer to the throne as it can get. And it's a bunch of checks and balances, just like anything. So like the only way that you could really be one with the Creator and have that level of control of government is if you are one with the Creator, and in its likeness, in total likeness of the Creator. Everything you do, think, everything, you don't even think at this point. You're just being, you're just consciousness. But on the way to that, your thoughts, feelings, actions, everything's in the likeness of the Creator in physical form. So you get access to a greater reality. So then, now you are, you have a different level of responsibility within the different levels of heaven. So a parasite's constantly trying to subtly creep its way deeper and deeper, as deep as it can go. And obviously, it's a fail-safe system. The parasite can only go so far. And even if the parasite does take over a body completely, or it does take over completely, the devil knows his time is short. It's like complete destruction, and everything folds in on itself, and everything resets when that happens. Because like if you read Revelations, the devil does take over. The devil, or the beast, I should say, the beast does take over for a brief period, and then there's total, bedlam. The angels from heaven descend upon, the fallen angels. Is a war in heaven, basically, because it's all heaven, and a third of the people are lost through this process. They're just consumed by the beast, and the beast has free reign for a period, right? There's the four horsemen come. You have the plagues and all of that shit comes. All of that shit happens in Revelations, and then the beast takes as many souls as it can, and it goes into a dormant state for 1,000 more years. It's Revelations, man. The beast gets put away again for another time. So about 1,000 years. Every 1,000 years, the beast grows as much as it can, tries to take the throne as much as it can, but it's a fail-safe system. As soon as the beast takes over, then the system's already collapsing in on itself, and the beast. It's just like when Neo and Agent Smith can never kill Neo. As soon as he tries to take over Neo's body, he becomes Neo. Neo becomes him. So then he's destroyed. It's like they say, they attribute this quote to Abraham Lincoln, but I doubt he's the first person to say it. But he's like, haven't I destroyed my enemy if I make him my friend? And it's the same thing. So once the devil unifies completely with God like that, then it's put in its place for another 1,000 years. Because the main contractor for the Lord is really the beast. If you've read Job, the beast is there tempting Job and is being there, pretty much challenging the Lord's subjects to make sure that everything's on the up and up, so that that the Lord's will can be applied through them, and then life can proceed. Everybody can go through their challenges to connect with themselves, because it's all like an arena. The challenges are like an arena to connect further with yourself or to get further away. Life is like an arena in that way, and the challenges are arena themselves. So like the only way for things to grow is really through challenge. You know what I mean? The plant has to break out of the seed and push itself up through the soil. It's all a challenge. You know what I mean? To reach the light. So that's pretty much the scenario. And self doesn't want to waste anything. The creator doesn't want to waste anything. Not a pinky toe, nothing. So until we get the complete body on board, everything will. And you have to get critical mass of the souls to realize, you know what I mean, for this loop to be transcended. The loop is just going to be a program taking its course. This dream is going to keep running. The beings that realize themselves move further into themselves towards, into heaven, or with different levels of heaven. And, you got different levels of angels and stuff. So like, this place will continue to be, an opportunity for people to realize themselves, or for beings to realize themselves, whether they're souls or programs, whatever. This is an opportunity space for that. And the only way that it would stop being a loop and be a reflection of eternity, a clear reflection of eternity, is if the originals of this place were to wake up. You had critical mass of the originals, and they woke up, or to this, they realize it's a dream, and then order gets restored, and then they maintain a connection to the core through the process of this loop, because the parasite is going to constantly challenge and tempt you through this process. You're going to have everything crashing down around you. You're going to have the beast is constantly going to give you like a chair to sit on that's going to fold in on itself, but you just think it's security. People can be like, oh well, I'm going to get FedCoin. I want to get universal basic income. They're going to lean on the system more and more. But if the core of the original man remains intact and in touch with themselves, then, people will fall by the wayside and fall into oblivion, and fall into a loop. But as long as the core stays intact and there's, that remnant survives, then when everything collapses, when Revelations takes its course, then the core is still there, and then you can have the loop will get broken, and then there will be the earth can reflect eternity instead of this same shit where everything has to get wiped out for people to wake up a little bit, and then they get a jubilee period, and they just get lazy, because they're like, all right, well, we back, original people be like, all right, well, it was given back to us, so now we're in control, and then eventually the beast takes over, in that 1,000-year period, and the descent happens again, to where they're not going through the really harsh times correctly. They go through the Jubilee period, and it's like, yeah, I mean, everything's been destroyed. Now it's your time to build up again. And if you're not careful, then you're gonna go through the real challenges. Because it's like, yeah, man, you rather go through bad times with good people and real people than good times with fake people and bad people, or people that are like not they're not integral, they have no integrity, people that aren't disciplined. So yeah, you're gonna go through that period of Jubilee, but that's a challenge in itself, because it's like, okay, it's like you got a bunch of money, it's like, all right, I'm up right now. It's a challenge to not just go and spend it and blow it all. And obviously we keep looping back, right? The whole world, you got a bunch, plenty of people will be like, all right, black man was the original man, or whatever, black man, and everybody on earth was black. And then you just can be like, well, how do we get here? How do we get to this point then? Obviously, somebody got decadent. Obviously, the 7 deadly sins don't care about your color. And if you indulge in that, no matter what color you are, you'll destroy yourself. So, obviously, that, somehow we're not breaking the loop just because everybody's of a certain color. So it's going to take a different approach than what's obviously been going on to bring us to this state of degradation that we're in now and what we're heading into. So that when this whole shit loops back, because we've already really passed the convergence point. Everything's been separated. No one's going to communicate at this point. Everything's going to have to get so fucked up for anybody to wake up. Then you have a small remnant survive, but not like what it could have been if people was waking up before that. If the loop is going to converge, it's a point where you got this point where like, all right, we're either going to loop back around or we're going to spiral in a different direction. And so we've already reached that point where it clicked back into the loop again, and then now individuals will move on from this, but they're still going to be chained to this experience because they're, if you live a complete life, you transition as a wholesome being, and you leave a placeholder here as original man. You have a child that's like a placeholder, that's like a sentinel to hold down the land, and continue the process. And now you help your child from heaven, a more realer reality, and you bring them up right into heaven. And then their children do that, and they go through that process, this internal process of creation, right? So you're still chained to this place, until you move you completely through, and break the loop. So you're gonna pass the torch, but they still have to break the loop, and you're gonna assist in that from the deeper realities. So until we loop back around and get to this point now where everything is, designed to click back into this convergence point, then we can make those changes. Now, obviously, people have got the stabby. Billions of people are not communicating with each other. Everybody's picking their sides. It's going to be, the world war is underway. The reset is underway on a rudimentary level with the world war, because that's what happens. The world war happens. The world gets carved up in different ways again. And then you have, it's a different reset. It's a different level of the reset. Everything's resetting. So we're going back to zero. Time is now working backwards because it's a loop. So now we reached that point where everything's been, if anybody saw the movie Mr. Nobody, they get what I'm saying. If you've seen the movie Mr. Nobody, the dude, he goes throughout his life, right? And then he reaches that point where he's about to die, but then time starts to go backwards because he's in an infinite loop. Time starts to go backwards. And he goes back to the point where he could make a decision to go left or right or whatever, basically, right? And that's kind of where we at. Like, everything's going to get back to the destruction mode, or, and then people will either make the decision to break the loop, or, because the grafts, can get grafted into the remnant, to the core of the physical expression of the creator, to original man. They can be grafted in. But most grafts will never do that. They'll never give up the luxuries. So, of the physical world, or the senses and comforts. They'll never get it. Most of them never get it up. So, like, either people will go through the loop and make the decision to break it, and the remnant will survive through and go through, a different experience instead of just like a rationed jubilee period. They'll walk in eternal light of the Lord, of themselves, and then of their true self. Not just who they think they are. Or people will just loop back around and they reach that same point where time starts to just go backwards, but it appears to be moving forward. It's like the boomers are all about to die right now. All the boomers. Anybody knows what a boomer is? That's somebody that was born after World War II. So World War II happened. Then people felt like, okay, there's a pocket of prosperity here to where I can have a family. So I'm going to have some babies, right? People felt comfortable enough to have babies. So you had this boom of babies, right? And now, all the boomers, as they're on their way out, we're hitting this next world war. Because it's all happening backwards. As it's going forward, it's happening back because it's an infinite loop. It's the same events, but it's going backwards as it appears to go forward. People's bodies are decaying and getting older, and they're having children, and then the children are growing and decaying, and they're having children, and it appears to be separate lives, but really it's just like one one life that, or one body pretty much, constantly regenerating over the lifetimes, over the series of the same memories, going through this loop, trying to, using it as a basis to realize themselves, to break the loop. But if you don't break the loop, you just continue to go transiting through these same memories over and over again, in different order, different arrangement. The people have different names, different altered faces, but the core is still kind of there. Some people get completely fragmented; they look totally different. But that's where we are at, where we already passed that point. 2012. Anybody that was on the internet in 2012, they know they could go on YouTube. They could search for some real shit. They could put in real shit on the YouTube search, and then real shit would just come up. Now, if you search yellow, they're going to give you gray. You can search whatever you want to search. They give you what they want to give you. So people know that that phase of learning is already gone. You know what I mean? People had their chances. Now, only way you can search for shit is if you already knew. And how does that help anybody else? Like, you already seen the video, so now you can search for it. You need to know the specific title to even find it anymore. You can't have like a variation of the title no more if it's some real shit. So only way people are going to really pick it up is if they learn from word of mouth. And some people will, but I'm just saying this is a small minority of the collective in this experience. But anybody that was around on the net 2008, 2009, 2010, 11, 12, they saw like, yo, there's way more on the internet. People are actually saying real shit. It's not censored really at all. So much real shit is on here. People talking about alternative or viewpoints of history and everything. I remember it was so easy to find different stuff. People talking about everything. Europe being black or America being Egypt, or all of that. Like, all of those ideas were posited and given and being put out. But then you had the censorship after 2012, which has been more and more censorship. Then Trump got in, and the censorship just accelerated even more because he's a puppet that doesn't know he's a puppet. I feel like he's that vain, and that's how spirits are. Where he really thinks he won the election, the first one. I think he won the second one. But I'm saying, like, he thinks he won the first one, legitimately. And I feel like they let him win so that he would add to this division, and the division goes, and the censorship and all that, it just expanded and more and more. And then the 2019, 2020 shit happened. So then you had more separation, more blockage of communication. And so now the people are so distant from one another that there's no way that you can even talk to people. People have committed in ways that there's no way you can really reconcile. Certain things that people have said and done to others and to themselves, there's no way that we can come to a common ground for the large majority of people, and the communication getting worse. So now you had the World War kick off, or the Ukraine bullshit. That's the beginning of the physical part of this spiritual war, or this physical war. Metaphysical, physical is the same. So once that happened, then now Russia banned Facebook and Instagram, and then now we don't get no Russian news no more. All we get is our own propaganda. So now, like, you got whole swaths, hundreds of millions of people in the world not really communicating like they should or could be. And it's only going to get worse. So all you can do is get in touch with the people that are actually real. Because all of the people that are not real with themselves are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to be food for the beast for that 1,000-year period. The beast is like going to go into hibernation, right? Bears eat a bunch of shit, then they go into hibernation. And that's what these souls that are beings, not even just souls, spirits too. Parasites get eaten by bigger parasites, so, or smaller ones, you could say. A tick is going to die. Ticks have mites in them. Sometimes ticks are being eaten by mites. So then the mite is probably being eaten by a smaller microbial. And then it's just a chain of like the smallest thing, because the smallest thing or the most indescribable thing is the creator. And a parasite is going to be not that small, but close. And that's how people are controlled, because the difference is so subtle. It's such a sleight of hand where you think that thought is yours when it's really the parasites. When you think this is really God or something, you identify whatever you're identifying with is God, really. So like, if it's fear, then fear is God. Whatever it is. If you're identifying with a thought, then you're giving your will, which is God, up to that thought. And so the parasite is subtle. It's very close to the likeness, the original parasite. And that's what eats the bigger ones, the more dense, more stupid ones that don't even, realize that they're parasites, that they really think that they're so vain, they don't realize, you know what I mean? And so that's how I feel about Trump. I feel like he truly is a puppet that doesn't see the strings yet. Whereas, like, I realized that at some point that I was a program, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, there's a chimpetto, like I'm being controlled, and I'm being used, and I can either be used for division or unification. So I rather the latter. I'd rather be one of those programs that are used to unify. You know what I mean? Just like in the Matrix, when they get in touch with some of the machines, I think it's like the Matrix 3, might have been 4. When some of the machines they start to use them for their own. It's just like the Terminator. They start to the first Terminator was evil, right? And then they found out how to program them to use them for themselves. And so then it's on that team. So some people will die with the lie, but some people won't. And some people that you thought was going to be true, obviously they've been exposed in this period, and it's only going to be more and more exposure. That's what Revelations is just exposure. And so I don't know, man. I know a lot of people seen them new Black Mirrors, right? I don't know. I just watched all of them shits. I binge watched them, and because I was on a train for like hours. So like I was like, let me just check these Black Mirrors out. So I'm watching the Black Mirrors, and I'm like, the one, they're all weak to me, but the one they have decent concepts, but they're weak. They spend more money on the actors. It makes it seem more real when the actors is just randoms, in my opinion. But fuck my opinion. All I'm saying is, in the first, I think it's the first one of the new Black Mirrors, is called Joan is Awful. And so like the chick doesn't know that she signed over her rights. She's like watching Netflix, and she realizes a Netflix series about her life, and it's like being updated in real time by a CGI AI computer. That's like her life's events play out, and then the next episode of the Netflix is her life's events, and it's interfering with her life, it's ruining her life, and she don't have no privacy, and she goes to Netflix, and she like, what the hell, how do y'all have the right to do this? And she's like, well, when you signed up for Netflix, you signed away your rights for us to do this, and eventually, right, she ends up breaking into Netflix. And she's trying to destroy the supercomputer that's creating all these series and movies that are made in CGI, and basically using real human events and stuff to produce the shit. That's how I feel too, man. I feel like every time people upload their art, whether it's music or whatever, they're just feeding it fucking AI. It's the thing that sucks about it, man. But it makes it more of a stronger beast. It's really wild. So like anyway, she goes into Netflix studios or whatever, and she's trying to break this computer, and then she gets into the control room where the computer is, and the dude in there is Michael Cera or whatever, and he's like, look, this ain't even real, man. This is the second layer. It's like being in a dream within a dream within a dream. He's like, we're in the second layer, like you're not real. She's like, this is the real you, and then he clicks on the screen. He's like, this is the real you. Your events are modeled after her events. Everything you do is really a ripple from her. You thought that you was real, and you're really just an extension or a shadow of her. And so she's like, all right, so then everything that I've done is already done, and I just have to pay attention and be present for it and not run away from it. So she eventually breaks the computer, and as she's going to break the computer, all the programs, all the parasites that live in the fucking fictive or fictitious level, the dream within a dream, they're like, no, don't destroy the computer or we cease to exist. And she's like, I've already done it in real life. So it's already been done. It's just waiting to happen here. And it's the same thing. Like dreams, the events have already played out. And then it unfolds in the dream. I mean, and this what we call life is really the dream. So reality creates, and then that produces this wake, this dream, what we live in now. So if you're present for that process, that creative process in reality, then you're not really blindsided by anything in this wake, and you can stay present for this derivative creation, or this, which is this realm. You can stay present for the events, and there's no point in being afraid. It's like I was ziplining today, right? And we climbing like 4 or 5 stories up into the trees, doing like Ninja Warrior shit to get to the top to zip line down, right? And you got like a safety zip line, right? But I was like, I don't want to use it ever. I want to make sure that I'm able to do this shit without any assistance, so that like if I didn't have it, I could do it. It's nice mental security, but I want to know that I can do it without it. So I didn't cheat on any of the events to get to the top. And I feel like that's kind of how life is. You know what I mean? Like, you are tethered to your true self, and the events are there. You just have to stay present for them so that you can go through them, and so you don't stay stuck in them. If something bad happened to you, and you're just stuck in that event, you're carrying it forever, then you just continually loop, and you're going to die and come back and die and come back, and just stay here when you could have moved on and returned. I shouldn't say return, but you realize reality. And now, say if you're the hand of God, now that hand is no longer numb in that greater reality. And now it's being used the way it should be used. Because when it's numb, it's going to be used for masturbation in various forms. Whether it's mental masturbation, emotional masturbation, actual masturbation, that's all going to take place when there's numbness. But when you feel everything, you would never want to do that. So it's kind of where we at. I think people just need to, utilize their superpowers throughout the day. If you have sex, you should only be having sex when you're not doing anything for the rest of that day. Why would you go into a heavily emotional state and then try to go do other shit with the rest of your day? You shouldn't be having sex unless you have nothing to do that day. That's such a disrespectful thing to even do to your body. You're just playing with your emotions, masturbating your emotions, and then now you're gonna be in that state, in giving off this euphoric state while you go through these other things, when you could just have been present for the euphoria and the creation, if you were really having sex and having a baby, which is real. Everything else is masturbation. So, if you just pulling out and not ever having sex with someone you don't even think you're gonna have a child with, and not planning to have a child with, then you're just gonna have sex like casually and abusively to yourself. You're raping yourself and your endorphins. Now your hormones are all thrown off and are not appropriated, when you could use your testosterone in a different way and your hormones in a different way in general. So I think that's pretty much everyone has to do, is like pay attention. And if you indulge in some garbage, pay attention. Fully chew that food completely. Do one thing at a time. Don't smoke and drink. Just drink or just smoke, or or whatever it is, and just stay present through the whole shit. Everything, every part of it. Don't distract. Don't try to watch TV. Don't just sit with yourself. Be with yourself. You know what I mean? You be there for whatever it is. Don't try to have sex on the drug and then eat food and just do the one thing. That's more pure, and then you will not want to continually do it because you're like, this is a waste of time to keep doing the same experience. But if you smoke and then eat and then have sex, or you smoke, have sex, and then eat, and then you smoke again, then you watch a movie, and then you eat again, and then you smoke again, then you go to sleep. You're not doing none of them things completely. All of this shit is done haphazardly and partially, so then the desire can persist, because none of it was done completely. And your whole life will reflect that. So, like, your body is your business, man. And you should be moving with the flow of your own hormones. You know, if you have a job right now, you should be working that job to figure out a way to be your own business so that you don't have to abuse your hormones. You don't have to get up when you don't want to get up. You don't have to go against your detoxing processes to stimulate yourself through a job. You don't have to do a bunch of shit you don't want to do. You can move with your own hormonal flows, and when you're detoxing, and you respect it, and you don't move when you shouldn't move, and you move when you should. And so you should be using your job to set up self-employment to be your own business, and then you connect with other business owners, people that own their own time, you know. And if you're in union with your hormones, then you know you're going to be more in union with yourself. And people just got to dwell in reality. I feel like a lot of us dwelling in reality, you know. As far as like what you feel like you can get done, you know, I feel like people cramming too many things in a day, trying to do too many things in a day. And if they just focused and was present and just did the correct things, what needs to be done, and then got that completely done, then move to the next thing, and then they would life would just sort itself. You know, so I think that's enough for the metaphysical stuff, I guess. And you know, I guess one last thing, like I was saying, man, fear is unconsciousness. So, like I was saying in the post, fear is unconsciousness, and you'll never get to the bottom of your fear if you keep treating the symptoms. You know, you get butterflies, you get sweaty palms, you get nervous tics. If you continue to like suppress those symptoms by reacting and being reactionary, then you'll never get to the root of the fear, which is just unconsciousness. Something is not being addressed. Something is being ignored. There's some unconsciousness there within the body. Some circulation isn't complete within the body. The blood's not flowing completely. You know, you need to stretch more. People need to stretch more, man. Stretch every day so that you can see like how trash the food is, because you won't have no will to stretch if you eat trash, or if you do, it's just be miserable. You'll be tight. So you got to stretch to get some of that fear out, man. A lot of that fear is just not stretching. Circulation's poor, not breathing. You're doing the breath work. You're attaching the prana to the breath. You stretch. It gets distributed through the system. The blood flows nice. You know, the symptoms of fear will come up. High blood pressure. I mean, high heart rate, adrenaline coming through. All of that can happen, but if you don't get distracted by that. You can see like, all right, where is this coming from? And then you can get to the source of what's plaguing you, where you're unconscious. If you try to block the nervousness with substances or distraction, then you're going to be afraid forever. And then the fear is going to turn into anger, anxiety, depression, all of that. So that's the metaphysical talk for today. The only thing I had for the society, man, was Janet Yellen. She was saying that she was just talking about the World War III shit. Somebody asked her like, what would happen if China gave up? They dumped 900. They own 900 billion in American debt, right? America owes China, Belgium, I want to say Luxembourg, and obviously the Federal Reserve has the most of that debt, which is a consortium of families, banking families. So those are the biggest people that America owes, right? China has 900 billion in debt. I want to say like Belgium has like 300 billion in debt. They own 300 billion in American bonds. And so if you had $900 billion getting dumped into the system, that would create massive inflation, right? And that's pretty much the biggest weapon that China has against America. So if they were going to go and invade Taiwan and expand, go through the next step into this World War III thing, they're going to dump 900 billion in debt, American debt, before they do it, so that they can cripple American markets before they do it, before more communication gets disrupted in the world and the propaganda machine gets even harder and harder on us and people get more divided, because there's going to be a collapse and people are going to be all pointing fingers at who did it, why they did it. They're going to be like, oh, China dumped 900 billion. That's why our economy collapsed. And then they invaded Taiwan. They're the bad guys. When really it's going to be a bunch of other people pulling the levers. And it's all gematria. Again, this has already happened in reality, and now we're just in the wake of it, in this dream, the reflection of it. So Janet Yellen, if anybody knows who she is, she's not Jerome Powell, but she's the underling. I think she's Secretary of the Treasury. So these are the people, these are the money people that are owned by bigger chimpedos that are owned by bigger chimpedos. Bigger puppeteers. Puppet masters, I mean. So, she said it like 3 days ago. She was like, or 23 hours ago, I think. I forgot when it was one of the two. I read a lot. So she was like, yeah, people got to get used to other countries wanting to dump the dollar because people that, America will threaten you with this gun that is the U.S. dollar. They'll say, well, if you don't do what we say, we'll sanction you and you won't be able to do business because we're the world reserve currency. And, we won't give you any debt. We won't issue you any debt. So, like, Ecuador used the U.S. dollar. Argentina's talking about getting rid of their currency and using the U.S. dollar. So, there's plenty of countries that are just dependent on the U.S. dollar, man. It's not even America. You can spend the U.S. dollar in Saudi Arabia and a lot of places. You know what I mean? And if you have countries like, we sick of America abusing us and getting our resources and threatening us with sanctions, we're going to move into other directions, move into other currencies, move into BRICS, move into other things. The BRICS system or whatever, or crypto, whatever they think they're going to do. That is just going to, that's going to create more inflation in the system as confidence goes away from the dollar. So only way to stop the inflation is for them to raise the interest rates, which just makes even less money in circulation. And it's just going to destroy middle class, or mid-level businesses, mid-level banks. The middle class is going to get destroyed more and more until it's just complete. It's just a big poor underclass and then a small elite that rules over in a police state. That you have a poor underclass, then the police state, there'll be another level. And then they're like the knights. And then you'll have the elite over top of them. So, that's what's going on, I guess, politically in the world. I mean, obviously, it's Pride Month. If you were in Europe, you would see, like, where they want the rest of the world to be, bro. It's crazy, man. Pride is the number one sin. And, that's why the Bible is real as shit. You know what I mean? It says a lot of real shit. The realest of shit, honestly. It's just been translated into languages that are limited, so it doesn't appear as real. It's like through the light's going through a mirror, through a mirror, through a mirror, through a mirror, and now it's kind of just blinding light. It's not really like this eternal flame, this steady flame. But yeah, man, that's where we at. Politically, obviously, you see the shit with Trump and Biden. You see the RFK shit. I see RFK, man. Iowa and New Hampshire, they're gonna run the primaries first, no matter who tries to bump up their schedule. Iowa and New Hampshire are gonna do the first primary, and RFK will likely win New Hampshire and Iowa because New Hampshire, they got a lot of Democrats that don't like Biden. They're still Democrats though, and they got this ad campaign like "Don't run, Joe. Don't run, Joe." So RFK will probably win. He's probably going to lose the primary as a whole. We might not, though. But RFK will probably win Iowa and New Hampshire because they have the first primary. And that will be such an embarrassment to Joe that it could create a trend where RFK ends up winning. And my theory is that if he wins, he's going to get his head blown off like the rest of it, like his dad and his uncle. So, if not, then I just feel like he still could lose. Biden will still win the primary and be the Democrat representation for running for president in 24, but it'd be such an embarrassment that he might lose the election even more than he did last time, to where when they steal it, it's going to be even more set division on the street level with people. And I feel like that's what they really want. You know what I mean? Other scenario is that Trump gets in and pardons himself, and that creates massive division. I don't think there's any way to get away from this, man. The city to rural divide is so crazy that I don't think there's any mending it. And that's pretty much what we're living in. And if you go to Europe, you can see where they want it, man. Social credit score system coming, everything getting more digital. The Pride Month is so serious. And in China, they not like that because it's more conservative in that way, with the with that shit, with the rainbow police people. They're not really so much on it like that, but you can see the social credit score system is nuts, man. Just to get on the train, you gotta use facial identity. In some places, you gotta use facial ID, and it's all just being tested, man. It's all in its like infant. It's in incubator states, and different parts of the world testing different shit until it all merges into a digital country, digital world. And some people are gonna live on the outside of that, the remnant that will make it through the reset, and then you'll have everybody else that is gonna go through with attacking themselves, destroying themselves. And I think with that said, I'll just take the questions now. Alternatives for fluoride toothpaste. You could use diatomaceous earth and activated charcoal to brush your teeth with a little bit of baking soda. There's plenty of fluoride-free toothpaste now, I feel like. How do you carry the feeling of a breathwork session throughout the day? I think it's just a gradual thing, man. It's more subtle than that. It's just clarity. More and more clarity. Best geographic locations during the reset. I would say places that survived the last reset. So look at places that are really old, like there's parts of Asia, some places that survived, some remnants that survived. If you're into meltology, hashtag meltology, you can see some parts that survive. And like places like Sequoia National Forest, those trees obviously been there a while. They made it through the last reset. Just look for places that are really ancient, old growth forests. I know, like they say, Cairo, New York, got the oldest forest on Earth. That would be my suggestion. Places that have already made it to the last reset. They obviously stood the test of time. Is that because the father is closer to the creator away from the parasite? Well, the seed is more of like an enclosed thing, you know what I mean? It's still going to affect the seed if you plant it in terrible soil. It'll affect the genetics, and over time, if it stays in terrible soil, the seed line will become more and more corrupted. But, we're at a point, you can see it, man. Anybody that raised plants, you can have multiple genetics in one plant's batch of seeds, and one seed will be totally different leaf pattern than another. It'll be the same plant, Remember when I was growing weed, it was like that. I'll cross the plants, and then like I'll get a bunch of different seeds, and then like it'd be like 5 different strains though. And then some of them look exactly like the mother and father, the mother and father or whatever, like hybridized. Some of them look like just the father, some of them look like just the mother. So sometimes people will have plant seeds in certain different soil, but that seed is a different kind of. That seed is going to be what it is. It's the plant that it is, no matter what soil you plant it in. Whether you plant it in Africa or America or wherever, that seed is what it is. It's contained. I'll be back in America in October, bro. Yeah, I'll be back in America in October, barring some natural catastrophe or something like that, or financial catastrophe in the world. I'll be back in October, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna stop in Jersey first. I was thinking about that. I was just talking to my mom about it. I was thinking about stopping by her place first. Yeah. I gotta get back to California probably at some point in October because my dog's gonna go in the heat, like mid-October. So I'll be back like October 3rd or 4th. So yeah. Thoughts about parasites that cause people to want to commit suicide. A friend of mine is struggling. I feel like it's more than just the ego wanting to die. I mean, parasites can take over large territory in the body. You know what I mean? And really to the point where it's almost snuffing out the original self. So, I mean, virtue, is, they gotta read. They gotta get around some real people. They gotta get around some real texts. And then they gotta really get into a creative practice. to where they can experience the Creator through creation. Because you just want to die, you know what I mean? Creation is like light to a plant or water to a plant, man. And being around real people is like water to a plant. If you're not around real people and you're not in a creative process, then you're going to want to die. You know what I mean? You're either creating consciously or you're unconsciously destroying. So that's it. That's it for the questions, man. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate y'all for listening. This is going to be on patreon.com/Taylor Durden. Patreon.com/Taylor Durden. There's 2 tiers. So a lot of the videos you can see, I think it's only like $5 to get to watch the videos. And then I have like 20 or 30 other videos that are like in the $13 tier. So patreon.com/Taylor Durden. And then I got 51 audiobooks and PDFs. It's a bundle of PDFs and audiobooks, 51 in total, that I'm selling for $50. And I'll do consultation for $50 a half hour, or $50 for a half hour of breathwork instruction. $50 for half hour of breathwork instruction, $50 for half hour consultation, $50 for 51 PDFs and audiobooks. And you can follow me on Patreon at patreon.com/Taylor Durden. You can also follow me on OnlyFans. It's onlyfans.com/Taylor Durden 609, because eventually I'm going to ditch the Patreon. And then eventually I'm going to ditch that OnlyFans and keep it moving until we all just actually in person. So that's it. Follow me on Twitter, Taylor Durden 609. Follow me on Facebook, it's Tao Lore. And follow me on YouTube. That's my biggest following. It's like 30,000 people follow me on there. So it's youtube.com/royalty227, or just Taylor Durden on YouTube. So that's it. Thank you guys. I'll be back on tomorrow night. It might be on live or it might just be on Patreon. I'm doing another podcast tomorrow night. So thank you guys.